The chamber trembled as the massive shadow in the darkness rose to its full height. The glow of its golden eyes pierced through the dim torchlight, and a guttural snarl echoed against the stone walls. Scooby whimpered, flattening his ears against his head. Rhea, I don't like this. Shaggy, gripping Scooby for dear life, took several shaky steps backward. Well, gang, it's been fun, but I think it's time to call it a night and rule. Fred raised a hand. Wait! Shaggy nearly tripped over himself. Wait! Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Fred's jaw was clenched, his eyes locked on the tall, cloaked man who stood perfectly still in front of the creature. There was no fear in his expression, only resolve. Daphne glanced between them. He's not running. Velma adjusted her glasses, watching carefully, because he knows what it is. The golden-eyed man raised a hand toward the beast. Stay back, he commanded in a voice both firm and ancient. The creature let out a low growl, but it obeyed. It stopped moving, its enormous shadow looming behind the guardian. Shaggy blinked. So, just to be clear, this thing's on a leash? The guardian exhaled deeply, as if carrying the weight of an ancient burden. It does not wish to harm you. Fred took a cautious step forward. Then what is it? The guardian slowly turned to face them, his golden eyes gleaming in the dim torchlight. It is a sentinel. A protector of this place. Daphne frowned. Protector of what? The guardian's face darkened. He gestured toward the massive carvings on the walls, depicting a hidden civilization, a lost order, and something else. Something sealed beneath the earth. Velma's eyes narrowed as she studied the symbols. This isn't just any tomb. This place was built to hide something. The guardian nodded slowly. For centuries, these catacombs have concealed an ancient secret. A power that should never be disturbed. Shaggy crossed his arms. Okawai. But if it's so secret, why is there a giant glowing-eyed monster living down here? The guardian's lips pressed into a thin line. Because it is the last protector of the seal, and now, the seal has been weakened. A distant rumble shook the chamber, as if something far below them had just stirred. Scooby's tail tucked between his legs. Row! Daphne glanced at Fred, her voice low. I don't like where this is going. Velma adjusted her glasses. Neither do I. Fred turned back to the guardian. Someone was screaming down here. We heard them. Who else is in these catacombs? For the first time, the guardian's expression shifted, a flicker of concern. You heard the voice? Daphne nodded. It sounded like someone was trapped. The guardian was silent for a long moment. Then he turned toward a smaller passageway at the edge of the chamber. Come. The gang exchanged glances but followed him deeper into the tunnels. The passage was narrow and twisted, the walls damp with condensation. The rumbling from before had stopped, but an unsettling pressure hung in the air, as if the very stones were waiting. Finally, they emerged into another chamber, a small, abandoned excavation site. Rusted tools, broken lanterns, and scattered notebooks lay across the ground. Velma immediately picked up one of the books, flipping through the fragile pages. This belonged to an archaeologist. Fred looked around. So someone was investigating these catacombs. The guardian nodded. A scholar. Dr. Elias Thorne. He came seeking answers. Daphne frowned. Where is he now? The guardian's voice was grim. Gone. Shaggy groaned. Why is it always some missing scientist? Velma scanned the notes, adjusting her glasses as she read aloud. The seal is breaking. The whispers grow louder. I fear I am not alone in these tunnels. She hesitated, then turned the page. If anyone finds this, do not let it escape. Shaggy gulped. Let what escape? Before anyone could answer, a sudden screech echoed from the darkness. A horrible, inhuman cry, filled with rage and hunger. Daphne's breath hitched. That didn't sound like the Guardian's sentinel. The Guardian's expression darkened. because it wasn't. A deep, rumbling growl filled the tunnel ahead. Then, bam! The stone wall at the far end of the chamber cracked, dust spilling from the fractures. Something huge was slamming against it from the other side. Fred's voice was tense. Something's trying to get through. Velma's grip tightened on the journal. The seal, it's already breaking. Shaggy threw his hands up. Welp, that's it. That's the end. Nice knowing ya, gang. The wall cracked again, this time splintering open. And through the widening gap, something huge and terrible began to crawl through. The gang stared in horror. It had been trapped for centuries. But now, it was free. The gang stood frozen as the distant cry for help echoed through the catacombs. The voice was faint, almost drowned by the oppressive silence, but it was unmistakably human. Shaggy gulped, gripping Scooby's fur tightly. Well, we should totally ignore that, right? Like, no good ever comes from following creepy voices in dark, haunted tunnels. Velma adjusted her glasses, eyes narrowing. But if someone is really trapped down here, we can't just leave them. Fred nodded, stepping forward. Exactly. If we follow the voice, maybe we'll find some answers and a way out. Daphne turned back toward the iron-barred gate where the creature had vanished. Its glowing golden eyes were nowhere to be seen, but the memory of its snarling breath still sent shivers down her spine. Let's just hope we don't run into that thing again. A cold gust of air suddenly swept through the corridor, carrying a sound that made their blood run cold. Whispers. Not one, not two, but dozens of whispers slithering through the air like unseen voices surrounding them. Scooby's ears drooped. Reapers? Shaggy whimpered. Nope, definitely ghosts. We're in a haunted underground tomb, and the walls are talking to us. Fred swung his flashlight around, but nothing was there. The stone walls were smooth, damp, and completely empty. Yet the whispers continued, their words impossible to understand, distorted, ancient, like echoes from the past. Velma furrowed her brows, pressing her hand against the wall. This isn't supernatural. It's acoustic reverberation. Daphne crossed her arms. Meaning? Velma glanced around. It means that sound is traveling through these tunnels in a strange way. The voices and whispers could be coming from a hidden passage, or someone might be using this place to scare people away. Fred nodded. Then let's follow the voice and find out who or what is behind all this. Shaggy groaned. I was afraid you'd say that. Moving cautiously, the gang followed the faint cries through the twisting tunnels. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The air grew stale and an unsettling dampness seeped through the walls. Then, the whispers stopped. Just silence. Scooby's tail drooped. Ruh-oh. Fred held up a hand. Everybody quiet. They listened. Nothing. No voices. No movement. Just the faint dripping of water somewhere in the distance. Then click. A mechanical sound echoed behind them. Velma's eyes widened. Did you hear that? Before they could react, the ground shifted beneath them. Jinkies. Velma cried as the floor gave way. The gang plunged downward, tumbling through a hidden trapdoor that had opened beneath their feet. They slid down a steep stone chute, spinning and twisting through the darkness, before finally landing in a heap inside a massive underground chamber. Scooby landed on top of Shaggy. Roof, rough landing, Shaggy groaned. Oh, I think I left my stomach back there. Fred pushed himself up and shone his flashlight around. The room was enormous vaulted ceilings, stone pillars, and walls covered in strange carvings. Dust swirled in the air, disturbed for the first time in centuries. Velma gasped. This isn't just part of the catacombs. This is something older. Daphne frowned. Older than the catacombs? What does that even mean? Velma traced her fingers along one of the carvings. It depicted a group of figures wearing cloaks surrounding a large stone altar. Their faces were hidden, but one detail stood out. Their eyes were all golden, just like the creature they had seen. Fred took a step forward when suddenly, scrape, a heavy stone door slammed shut behind them. Daphne spun around. The entrance, it's sealed. Before they could react, something moved in the darkness ahead. A faint shuffling sound. Slow, deliberate footsteps against the stone floor. A voice low and rasping drifted from the shadows. You should not have come here. Scooby whimpered, clinging to Shaggy. Shaggy's voice cracked. Guys. I vote we go back the way we came. The figure stepped into the light. It was a man wearing a long, tattered cloak. His skin was pale and dusty, as if he had been living underground for years. But it was his eyes that caught their attention, large, golden, and eerily familiar. Velma took a cautious step forward. Who are you? The man exhaled, his breath dry and ragged. I am the last guardian of the Forgotten Catacombs. A heavy silence fell over them. Fred narrowed his eyes. Guardian? Guardian of what? The man lifted his head slightly. Shadows flickered across his face. Of the secret that must never be revealed. A deep, echoing growl rumbled through the chamber. But it hadn't come from the man. It had come from behind him. The gang barely had time to react before something massive stirred in the darkness.